There's so much happening in politics right now. So Red, White, and Blue is here to ask, okay, but why?
Dempsey is my daughter. She is so many things. Trans just happens to be one of them, but she's sassy and smart and kind, and she's a diva, actually. She's quite a diva. And what I've been hearing her lately speak to is how she feels like when she leaves her house that people view her as a monster. She doesn't understand because she's, I'm just like everyone else who's just born a little different. A kid shouldn't have to fight for her right to exist.
Transgender people, and trans kids in particular, have been in the news a lot in the past few years. Transgender just means that you don't feel comfortable with the gender that you were assigned at birth. Many trans people say they've known all their lives, and some only realize who they are later in life. Some, like Dempsey, are told they're boys, but are absolutely certain they're girls. Some are girls who realize they're actually boys. And some realize that neither gender really feels right. If this is still all pretty new to you, don't worry, you're not alone. But trans people have existed for all of human history. Some historians think the Roman Emperor Elagabalus, who dressed in a feminine manner and preferred to be called lady instead of lord, to have been what we now consider transgender. And across the world, many cultures have a third gender, even in the present day, like Mahu in Hawaii and Two-Spirit in Ojibwe culture. So if trans people have always been there, why does it seem like we're talking about them more these days? Well, for one thing, the visibility of some high-profile trans people has inspired others to embrace their truth. That's not to say kids are being inspired to become trans. Discrimination and violence are still tragically common. No one is out there choosing a more difficult life. And to be clear, it's not that being trans is inherently difficult. It's the rest of society that makes it hard. From gendered children's toys to public bathrooms to hate crimes. But most trans people still say they felt they didn't have a choice. This is just who they are. Once someone realizes they're trans, there are a few different directions they can go. They can transition socially by changing their name, their hair or clothes, or what pronouns they use, like him or her. Or they can transition physically through hormones or surgery. These are all examples of gender-affirming care. Often people think that gender-affirming care only means surgery, but it can be as simple as just using a different name. Even medicines that use hormones to block or delay puberty are completely temporary. If a kid stops taking them, their puberty will start again. There's a lot of well-meaning concern for trans kids out there, but doctors are not giving children gender-affirming surgery. A Harvard study in 2019 found 0 cases of gender surgery in kids under the age of 12. And for the small number of teenagers who were given surgery, 2.1 per 100,000 teens, the vast majority are breast reductions for boys who aren't trans. 97% of gender-affirming surgeries on minors are for boys who were born as boys and identify as boys and just want a smaller chest so they can continue to feel like boys. Somehow, that statistic doesn't come up very often when people talk about gender-affirming care. But it doesn't stop politicians from making laws about it. In 2024, over 700 anti-trans bills were proposed. Everything from regulating bathrooms and sports to laws prohibiting gender-affirming care. And just so far this year, in 2025, over 900 anti-trans bills are under consideration across the country. The majority apply to kids, particularly in school, like laws that keep trans kids from playing sports. Some of the laws are, frankly, terrifying, like one in Florida that requires genital inspections for any kid suspected of being trans. Genital inspections of kids. Given how frequently we hear about laws like this, you might guess that hundreds or even thousands of trans kids are competing on sports teams. But the real number is less than 10. Even Save Women's Sports, an organization that wants to stop trans kids from competing in sports, could only find 5 transgender athletes competing on girls' teams. And when it comes to the college level, NCAA President Charlie Baker said that there are fewer than 10 transgender athletes who currently compete in college sports. That's less than 0.002%. Then there was this from West Virginia Governor Jim Justice.
Can you give me one example of a transgender child trying to get an unfair advantage? Just one in your state. You signed a bill about it.
No, I can't really tell you one, but I can tell you this, Stephanie. I'm a coach, and I coach a girls' basketball team. And I can tell you that we all know what an absolute advantage boys would have playing against girls.
But sir, you have no examples of this happening. Why would you take your time to do this? Let's talk about other things that I can give you examples of in your state. According to U.S. News and World Report, West Virginia ranks 45th in education, 47th in healthcare, 48th on the economy, and 50th in infrastructure. If you cannot name one single example for me of a child doing this, why would you make this a priority? I just named 4 things that would seem to me like a much bigger priority.
She asks a very good question. Why is this such a big political issue when there are so many real issues that we're dealing with? If we want to protect kids, let's work on our infant mortality rates or our youth mental health crisis. According to a study by Delaware Public Health, 35% of trans kids attempt suicide, which is so sad. But when they're allowed to socially transition and use their preferred name, they're 65% less likely to attempt suicide. The politicians who are passing these laws say they're trying to protect kids, but they're doing the exact opposite. These decisions should be made by families and doctors, not the governor of West Virginia. So again, why are politicians making this such a big deal? Why are there 900 anti-trans bills being debated across the country right now? It's a distraction. If a politician's constituents are focused on school bathrooms and kids' sports, maybe they won't notice that our maternal mortality rates are going up, or that 3 billionaires own more wealth than the bottom half of all Americans combined. It's an issue that many people don't know that much about unless they have a friend or a family member who's trans, and that means they're more likely to believe misinformation. By scaring people with fake information, politicians can drum up support while passing laws that actually harm Americans, not just trans kids, but all of us. Cuts to Social Security and Medicare, tax cuts for billionaires, book bans, women dying because of bans on life-saving reproductive care, deploying the National Guard against American citizens. That is what they're trying to distract us from. That is why they're talking about transgender kids. Not because they're new, not because they're dangerous, but because extremists want to confuse and distract us. Anti-trans laws aren't just bad for trans kids or trans adults. They're bad for all of us.
It's not really about whether or not you agree that trans people do or do not exist. They exist. What it really is just showing that we're a normal family with regular struggles and regular challenges, just like everyone else. My daughter is just a normal kid living her life.
Okay, But Why is a podcast from Red, Wine, and Blue. It was produced, narrated, and edited by Amy Thorstensen. To learn more about us, find us on social media or at redwine.blue.